right.
I think we're good to go, though.
We up and running?
I believe so.
Think so too, huh? Well, hi, everybody. Don Williams, Andre Luciano, Reese Canella, Chris Cousins. SRUSA presents Inside College Soccer Live. This is our 7th week, guys. So hope you've been enjoying the podcast, questions and answers, all about college soccer. If you have, please share with a friend, tell a friend. That's how we grow. And as we grow, we can reach more people and help more kids, spreading the truth about college soccer and pathways. So I know we've got some questions this week. I don't think we have a ton, but it doesn't mean there's not a whole lot going on in the world of recruiting and college soccer right now. So we can talk about what's going on currently and what we're hearing from college coaches. So the first question we've got is from Ken Smith, guys. Ken asks, when is a good age to start getting players out there? What are the critical years? Maybe you want to start us, Andre, but I will preface this is always one of our depends answers, right? There's a lot of depends in this. So what would you say that it depends on, Andre?
Gender. I think on the women's side, it's a little bit more expedited. So I'd say sophomore year, middle of your sophomore year, getting some traction and getting themselves, getting some traction in terms of connecting with coaches, writing emails, and trying to generate some interest that way. And on the men's side, I would say beginning of junior year is probably a really solid time frame from my personal experience.
Yeah, Reese, now you coach solely men, right?
Yeah, at the college level, yeah.
And I know that, the last school you were at, D3, everything was a little bit later at your particular school, but you've placed and got buddies that are coaching at some of the highest levels in the country, Division I. Have you noticed, like I've noticed, that while coaches will start on the men's side, start tracking players their junior year, what the real action doesn't really start to their senior year, I think. What is it? Did you notice? Are you noticing the same thing?
Yeah, I think, I've got players who have kind of maybe gone to a camp or two over the summer and then, nothing really happened. Yeah, it's communication, but obviously you're going into season. Nothing really happened till, sort of September, October, even now, we've got coaches reaching out to us. So for the boys game, it's a little bit later, and then obviously dependent on the division as well.
But as you said, Andre, junior year is like when you start to get your ball rolling, right? What kind of things does the player need to get lined up for that big senior year push on the men's side?
Well, I think there's a lot that goes into it, right? I think on the men's side, the boys are trying to figure out if they're going to get a pro contract with an academy, if they're going to look to go, try to make a push overseas. That hasn't quite happened on the women's side as much. However, down in Phoenix at the ECNL event, I did see some NWSL teams out there scouting kids already. So that's starting to happen.
That's interesting.
Yeah, identification process is starting to begin now on the women's side, a little bit younger, and tracking those players. But I think on the men's side, junior year, getting those connections going. But I think really a lot of this has to do with, on the men's side, I think there's a lot more in terms of jumping, ship to say, hey, you know what, I'm going to try to take a pro path. So the college coaches don't really know where they are and where they stand with their current players on their rosters. And so I think that's why it's a little bit slower on the men's side.
Yeah. And then on the women's side, again, so you take what the men are doing their junior year.
There's some bad signal going on, guys.
And I think we take what men, is it mine?
No, I think it's Andres.
Oh, okay. So basically, Andre, you were saying, I think you broke up there for a little bit, but you're saying that, that junior year is a big preparation year, right? And then that for the girls, that seems to be mostly the sophomore year. And then it depends on how good the player is, though. So if the women's side, you will find that the best players in the country on the women's side, the top 100, not by some list, by some person, but literally the top best 100 players in the country. And in England and in Canada and in Mexico and we go on, Sweden and Norway. When you consider those top 100, 200 kids, those are the Power Fives. Those are the ones that are going to go to the Florida States and the top schools in the country. Coaches want to identify those players as early as possible, so that come June 15th of going in that junior year, they can talk to those players, arrange getting them on campus, maybe through their coaches. As we know, people do cheat. I mean, people go through coaches at an early age. They could find a superstar like a Motri at a real young age, freshman year, and then coaches will go to the club coach, and club coach will go to the parents, and the parents will go to the club coach, and then that kid will just go ahead and visit campus so they get a feel for it. And then, that's how on first day that somebody can talk to somebody, that's why a kid is signing. But people are cheating. They're going around the rules. They're bending and stretching the rules. They're walking the very thin line. But the NCAA is quite clear. You can't have an agent going and doing your dirty work for you. It's flat out cheating. The NCAA rules are clear on that. When we take our coaches exams, they talk about that. You can't have agents doing it for you, but people do it. But that's the smallest, 1%, smallest, very small percent of players that are that good, that are being chased that hard, so badly do coaches want these players that they will put their jobs on the line and risk being found out that they've broken the rules. They're willing to do it for certain players. The majority of women in this country and men won't get picked up till their senior year. And the vast majority will probably get picked up somewhere between, I don't know, what do you think, Andre? December and March on the women's side, and January through April, May on the men's side. Does that sound about right to you guys, or maybe am I off a little bit?
Andre, you're on mute. I don't know if you can see it.
There we go. My video cut out when you asked the initial question, so I'm just trying to kind of piece it all together right now. Are you asking the final identification on a player's part?
No, actual placement. Because we talk about sophomore year identification on the girls' side and junior year signing. But I still maintain the argument that that's not the majority of the kids in the country. That's the top 1%. That the majority of kids in the country, boys and girls, average players on average college teams, which is most college teams are the average teams, that doesn't happen till late in their senior year.
Yeah, and I think also there's there's a prioritization on each program. So the elite programs, the top programs in the country, they know what they need to replace. And so that's where the urgency of the early commitments, June 15th, getting on that phone call with the juniors, that's where the urgency comes in. Those programs know who they're going to have to replace in 2 years. And so, they know it's a limited market in terms of players out there. And so they try to get a jump on, everybody else. I like I told you guys before, I remember vividly a recruit telling me that a top coach brought 2 kids into a room, sat down with both of them and said, here's your offer. First one to take it gets it. That's
vicious.
That's how cutthroat it gets sometimes, right? It would get. And so I think, on the women's side, it's a little bit quicker. On the men's side, I just think that everybody on the men's side, they know that there's so many kids that want to come over here to the US and play, and there's so many good players. And so they just kind of take their time. But I think you're much, the placement is much later on the men's side than the women. But, we've got coaches calling us about kids right now. And it's middle of November, still looking for 2023s. Division One.
Power Five Division One.
Yeah, because they're just having their end of the year meetings.
Yep.
By the way, if anybody out there knows a true starter Power Five Division One goalkeeper, please DM me.
You're talking
DM
girls
me.
or guys?
Girls.
Exactly.
Sorry.
Clear.
Great point, Chris. Girl, I didn't say that. Girls, on the girls' side, true, immediately can impact and help a team win a national championship. Division One, Power Five goalkeeper. I've got a school right now that will take you.
And then on the flip side, I've had like Wake Forest. God, who's contacted me today? Who hasn't contacted me today? You're probably guessing which player it's about as well. But yeah, they're all still looking, like in the guys' side of things, like all the big schools. It's even like High Point. They just beat UNC tonight or today, and he was texting me either side of the game about certain things.
He was texting me yesterday. So it tells you that they're like, well, I wonder if like sometimes they don't think that we're in the same company, Chris. It's funny, but yeah, no, I know how it goes, but they're reaching out to everybody trying to get going on this.
Yeah, but so what I'm trying to say there is, like, with the guy side of things, like it's the same what Andre just said. They're having the end of year meetings. The portal, obviously, I'm sure you'll talk about that soon. The transfer portal came kind of live this week, really, and they're all jumping on that while they might be still in season. But for the guy side, like there's very few commitments of any, not of any note, but like the big ones, the kind of main bulk of the commitments not happened yet on the guy side.
Yeah. So Chris and Reese, I got a question. So like, don't you feel like the trend is more this way with, you've got these kids that are internationals, they come over here, they're not known as a commodity here in the country in terms of the leagues that they're playing here, the domestic youth leagues. So they'll come over here, they'll take a half chance on a school, any school, right? It's just like, I'll just take a chance to get here and play. And then they kill it. They kill it at the school that they're at, right? In terms of like, they have a really, really good first year. And then their options, then they're like, you know what? I can probably broaden myself a little bit, on a bigger side of things, like some bigger schools. And then they make their mark here, and then they are so much more marketable. Isn't that like how the trend usually works?
I will say from like, especially like the UK, we had the stats from last year where majority of UK players went to junior college, and that's not because like, oh, it's the easy option just to place them there. There's different variables such as like finances, academics, and stuff like that. But the majority of players from international and not from these top academies. However, who was I speaking to? I can't remember who I was speaking to today, but they were like, oh, we signed last year the PSG's whatever player, like them sort of like level academies are releasing players, and then they come into the US college system, which is where mainly the big Division 1 and top soccer Division 2 schools get the players from. But long story short, what you're trying to say is like, yeah, we can kind of mold players to go wherever we feel is the best fit, where it's a lot harder dealing with Americans in that case, because the Americans have got preconceived, like they've got different ideas basically because of basketball and football. They want to go different things, and we won't get into that too much. But the English people, we can send them somewhere, telling them, look, go there, you've got a good scholarship on offer, smash it, then the world's your oyster. So that's why the portal becomes important for them sort of guys. And like it's happened this week with a few of our guys who've got in the portal. Reese, do you want to add to that?
I think you hit the nail on the head. You've got players who are, like you said, overseas, are willing to, they just want to get, it's not about where in America, it's about being in America. Now, once you're here, now you can start looking at other schools and divisions. I mean, for me personally, I didn't really know what the NCAA was, Division 1 through Division 3. And I know that the access to information's more vast now, but I just wanted to come over. The opportunity to come to America was an opportunity I couldn't miss out on.
You probably didn't know about the divisions, right? You probably didn't know the difference. Yeah.
No, fortunately, I had professor who he had been in the States. He actually went to Tulsa and he was a runner, a long distance runner. And so, I showed him the media guide actually and said, "What's this?" And he said NCAA Division II. He's like, "Yeah, that's good." I was like, "All right, cool." So came over, it's Tiffin, and Tiffin's a world away
Hall of
from
Fame.
Yep. I did make that, but Tiffin's a world away from where I'm from the Greater London area. Tiffin's small town, 20,000 people. There's neighborhoods in London bigger than that. But I came over and played and enjoyed it and recruited a couple of my mates over. And then, I don't know if I could have transferred elsewhere, but we've got some players within the company who have come over, proved themselves, gone to places where Americans probably look down upon. And now you can look at some of these guys who have come over, prove themselves. They're probably in a more favorable position because they were more open-minded in the first place.
Yeah. I started at junior college and I loved it.
Yep.
Yeah.
I started JUCO too. I mean, my first, our first national championship in 1990, in preseason, we played Mercer, which was a fantastic program back in the day, Division I program, and they were loaded with guys from England. In the national championship, we played Passaic, who I'm pretty sure, it was the Jamaican and the Haitian national team at the time. You guys were, I know, I swear, they were like 30 years old. They had their kids with them. It was crazy.
We had a guy in our team who played Serie B in Italy. He said he was 20, but I heard that when he was drunk once that he was a lot older than that. And then also, he's originally from Africa, then Italy, but he played in Serie B, and then honestly, he absolutely bossed it. But yeah, carry on. Sorry.
Yeah, so the level. So that's the thing, and that's something that we got to point out to people is that people have this misconception of what junior college soccer is. Like my last year at Yavapai, when I coached at Yavapai in 21. We played Arizona Western twice in the district finals, right? Or in the regional finals. My last game against them, I played these guys now 4 times. I asked the guys, I walked in like, "Hey, how old are you guys?" And they're like 26, right? But if you're an 18-year-old and you want to prove yourself at the Division I to go to the Division I level and be ready to play as a Division I player, why would you not go into an environment that you're playing against 25 and 26-year-olds on a consistent basis to get you ready to play Division I?
Well,
right?
Let me add to that. Let me jump in there a second, Andre. Just the other day, the guy who scored the winning goal for Syracuse, I believe, in the ACC conference final, he scored the winning goal in the JUCO Division III final last year. So he played JUCO for 2 years, one for Richland,
and no scholarship at the Division III level.
No scholarship, and then
then
Syracuse have recruited him, and he just scored the winning goal the other day in the ACC final.
Yeah, I just wish people would get out of this mentality of like, hey, it's it's all 4 years, all 4 year or bust, because it is the most. It's such as a JUCO product and coaching in JUCO and just trying to help kids get place is the most frustrating thing, that people have such a backwards, mentality towards like what's arguably one of the cheapest ways to go to college, one of the best ways to get exposure, one of the best ways to develop as a player, as a young 18, 19-year-old against players that are older. And you play a lot, you play a lot of games. You don't sit on the bench as a junior college player. You're actively playing every single weekend. And
it's funny, Andre, I was out scouting yesterday at JC game, and my son calls. He's at NC State, and we were just talking, but he did say he looked at the stats from all of the best junior college teams that he could find, looked at the minutes, analyzed the players, found some film, and called every one of the top 5 or 6 coaches in the state of California that he had coached against, that he knew. So here's an ACC school scouring the JC market, wondering if there's a gem out there, if there's a kid that can fit in. So folks, I don't understand that American kids would kill to go to 4-year schools, but they don't want to sit there and prove it for 2 years beforehand. They just want that free pass.
This has turned into a JUCO podcast.
Yeah, sorry about that. We're
I
going on-
apologize.
We're going on the rant. Okay.
No, but Don, to that point as well, I know a school that, you know, I don't want to say their names just in case. I don't know if they want this out there, but it might be part of their recruiting strategy. But they were keeping tabs on all the top players in the nation at JUCO, and like it's a legitimate division where, you know, if you have success there, you could probably have more success at a 4-year after the fact than you did when you were, you know, a young 18-year-old going into a 4-year and having to, you know, bide your time and maybe not get that opportunity because you're not playing. So different strokes for different folks, right?
The year that we knocked off the #1 team in the country, within a week, I was fielding calls from UC Santa Barbara, UCLA, Penn State, Florida State on the women's side that same year. It's USC on the women's side that same year. We're fielding phone calls from these coaches because we had certain players that did very well and the team did very well.
Yeah, Jess McDonald. So came out of high school in Arizona. Stud. Couldn't get into UNC from what I remember. UNC recruited her. She went to Paradise Valley Community College in Arizona, won two national titles, and was like player of the year. Went to UNC, killed it, became a national team player, pro, Hall of Fame JUCO player. You know, so it happens on both sides, on men and women, all the time.
Yes, it does. Well, we're going to do a podcast soon with Jeff Beitcher. Went to West Valley College, got picked up by Santa Clara, made it to the Final Four, the Killer Bees, Beitcher Bravo, and then got drafted in the MLS and had a nice career for San Jose. There's a lot of stories like this out there, folks.
Ken Smith's probably wondering, I only asked a quick question.
So Ken, to answer your question, as late as you want. No.
Yeah,
there's so many different variables. Like Don said in the beginning, there's so many different ways to get looked at, and I think it just depends on what you're open to.
When we open up any answer with "it depends," this is what the problem is. I think so many people want a simple pill to fix all their problems. Pill to lose weight, you know, pill to get stronger, pill to be smarter. There is no soccer pill that says that this will fit everybody, because we're talking about individual human beings who each have their own wants, desires, personalities. Each family has their own criteria, right? Money, location, how some families, it is so important that they watch their kids play. That's non-starter, talking about moving across the country, a non-starter for the kids and for the parents. There are so many different factors like that. This is not an easy answer.
if I've got a kid, I
do
do
we
have
know
kids.
that- Yeah.
I was going
What
to say,
was that,
if I had kids, I do have kids. Actually, they're asleep upstairs. But when they're older, I'll be sending them to places. They'll play from, or try to play from minute one. But also, it's like we always say, it's not where you start, it's where you finish. So, like,
Chris, how do you answer the people who say that we push JUCO and JC and Division II and NAIA because we can't place kids Division I?
I mean, they don't really say it to me ever, but I mean, they just say, look, well, that's wrong because this player went to Division I, this player went to Division I. It's not about that. It's like every person's got an individual journey. So there's a lot of factors. It's even on two teammates, you can't compare them because there's different academic, financial, lifestyle factors with every single person. So I just tell them to be quiet.
Yeah, but why would we only promote to 25% of colleges?
Yeah.
It's like 75% of the schools are still out there.
Right.
Well, that's why we release all the facts. I don't know any other company in the world that releases the numbers that we do, and we pretty much are pretty open with everything. So I think I can't remember what the stats were. Don, can you remember like what roughly?
It's like
what they
20.
were?
It's like 30. It's like 30, 30, 30, and then we've got a little sliver. D3 isn't super big with us because a lot of our kids have limited budgets. Almost all of our internationals have quite limited budgets. And a lot of American kids, it's the opposite problem. They've got large budgets. When you see how much these families are spending on their youth soccer, how much money they're spending over their kids' career, these families have disposable income. And so they can afford $20, $30, $40,000, 50, 60, $80,000. They can afford it. They can write those checks. So then it's really hard for Division II schools to get, or 3 schools to get those kids that aren't one of the top academic Division III schools in the world, in the country. So I think that's why D3 is smaller, but it's like almost 20, high 20s, mid 20s to junior college, NAI, Division II, Division I. We actually had more Division I women's placements last year, and they weren't it wasn't because they were internationals. I think the largest percentage of Division I placements for us last year were Division I was domestic American girls, was the largest segment at that level. But the boys were about the same too, 20 something percent. We'll have to repost those. We'll repost those on Twitter and our social medias just for fun.
I will add to that though, like, and I shouldn't really say this, but the Division I, like for the example, the domestic guys, majority of the Division I placements, they haven't played, or they played minimal minutes. They just wanted that Division I, and it was just kind of part of the right. Okay, I mean, we've got you on the roster. It's down to you now, and a lot of them haven't played. So, yeah, it's tough, isn't it? You just got to weigh up all your options.
Just had a very intense conversation with one of our lads that went to Malaga, took a gap year because he wasn't getting any Division I offers, and that's really what he wanted. Then he got placed, and then he didn't play, and so we talked about transferring and the pros and the cons. And I think the lad's going to stick it out. To his credit, he says, "No, I want to fight. I want to fight."
Is it the outfielder or goalkeeper?
Outfield player. Yeah.
Okay, right. I probably know who it is.
So he's going to stay and fight. And I said, see, that's what coaches want to hear. Coaches don't. How attractive is it if we run from all of our problems? If we stand and fight and we can overcome the adversity, that's how national championships are born. That's how conference championships are born, because you have a whole group of kids that will not back down from a fight.
There we go.
Maybe that's not the only reason why kids are transferring in bundles, but we really have gone on the sideways. What other questions do we have?
We don't need it anymore. That's it. Thanks, everyone.
That's our podcast. Thanks, everybody. Good night.
There we go.
Katie Norris says, should we have, this is another, it depends. Should we have our top 10 colleges we would like to attend and play for by the end of our junior year? Also, is it okay if we feel ready to commit, we verbally commit before our senior year? Lots of pressure with all these 24s already verbally committing. Now, guys, before we answer this question, I had a thought, and this is the thought that I had. The advice that's given to almost every recruit, by every club, by every tweet, by every website, by every book that I've ever read, is choose the schools that you want to go play at, that you're interested in, the schools that you really want to go to, with or without soccer. Make sure you're happy at that school. The schools that are the most attractive to you, the ones you want to be at, and then write all of those coaches, get them to come and see you. So let me read that list. It's Florida State, Alabama, UCLA, Notre Dame, North Carolina, Penn State, Duke, St. Louis, Arkansas, Virginia, Stanford, South Carolina, Pittsburgh, Harvard, Michigan, Georgetown, Northwestern, USC, Clemson, BYU. I could keep going on, but what I did is I just listed the top 20 women's teams in the country. And the men's list would read similar, except Indiana would be in there and Akron would be in there. And, some other schools would be in there. Duke would be in there. But Duke is in there. But the point is that that's the advice that we're being given. Now, kids are following that advice to the letter, and they're going to all these camps and they're writing all these coaches. And Their coaches are, oh, I got a card from the Duke coach. I heard that they were at the game today. They didn't ask about me, but I heard they were there. So they're watching me play. So they're doing exactly what they're supposed to be doing. And then what happens, Andre?
Well, I don't think it's a bad idea. I mean, I think that you got to give some kind of closure, right? I feel like, look, pick a couple schools that you really want to go to, and then go and get an answer. I think that's like, I had someone that went
But
to
they
a
aren't
camp.
getting are they getting answers? I guess I should say.
Well,
Are they getting answers?
Well, here's the thing, is that we open doors and we know people, and I can flat out call somebody and say, give me an honest evaluation and tell me your thoughts. For a college coach, it's a lot easier than for them to communicate with me than it is directly with the kid, because it crushes them.
Yep.
So they'll tell me, and I just relay the message. And I'm like, look, it's not going to happen. And the kid's like, really? And I'm like, I'm just telling you, this is why. And then that door's closed and it's done, and they move on. Right. But if you're chasing 20 schools and doing that, it's going to cost you an arm and a leg to do that, to go everywhere. But it also kind of gives them an idea of like, hey, if your goal is this top 5 school, top 10 school, you go to their camp and they say no. Now you know not to go to the other schools that are in the top 10, because you're probably not going to get recruited by them either. That's how I approach it in that manner. And I think it's okay, for people to have a dream and they want to go to that school. I always said, here are my thoughts, is that if you're an alum, if your family's an alumni of that school, and that has been your dream school, that's a camp you should go to, because you need to get a hard yes or a hard no, right? If you can, if you have a bunch of, you have your top 10 list, I think 10 is way too small. So Katie, I'm going to tell you right now, 10 is too small. Your sample size is way too small. So whoever Katie Norris is, I would expand that. And and if you're working in the medical field and you're doing an experiment on only 10 things, you're not going to be very successful. So I would expand your expand your list to a little bit bigger, bigger schools. And I don't know, I'm rambling right now, but
The first thing I would tell somebody, Andre, is get an assessment. Find somebody in your town that recently maybe graduated from and played at a big school. Somebody from your club has to know somebody probably that played at or graduated from a big school. Find somebody that can assess you.
Somebody that they trust, though. They don't have they're not in. See, that's the problem, though, is that I think a lot of club coaches, I've had this.
Not a club coach. Well, it could be a club coach.
No, I had a lot of coaches, like we talked a lot about this, is that they have a really hard time trying to get an honest answer from the club side.
Right.
Because if you're really direct and honest, and I was sitting at getting coffee and talking to this with the DOC, and they're like, if we're really direct with somebody, odds are they're probably going to try to find somewhere where they're going to get the answer they want. And so, it's like, who did that kid goes to? Are you good enough? And who knows, whether or not they're good enough to play at that level. So it's tough. It's so hard for these kids because they just don't have anybody to go to.
Well, it's got to be seen there, been that, know what it looks like. I mean, you have to have bits and pieces of that in there, because it would be, look, I would be lost right now if Bayern Munich came to me and said, find a player that will immediately fit us, Don. I've never been around their staff. I don't know the culture. I don't know exactly what they're looking for. I don't know, there's so many, it would take time for me to understand exactly what they're looking for. It would be, because I've never been at that level. I've never spent years at that level. I've never hung around those players at that level. It would take time to grow up to that level. So I think it's difficult for a club coach who's never been around Florida State level football on the girls' side, and I don't know, name the top schools, UCLA level, and hasn't spent time in and around those levels to know, unless they've produced 10, 20, or 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. A lot of players that have gone to those schools, that would be one way of knowing, but a lot of coaches haven't done that. It's hard to get that level of experience. It's hard to know what it looks like sometimes. What about the second part of this, about the commitment piece? If you feel ready to commit by your senior year, to verbally commit, right? Because kids are getting nervous because they see other players committing. So they all want to also commit before their senior year. I hear a lot like, I just want to relax and enjoy my senior year. I don't want to think about being recruited. I want to know where I'm going. What do you think about that thought?
So let's go back to what the word verbally commit means from an NCAA standpoint. Commit at the NCAA level means you signed your national letter of intent. That is the only time that the NCAA recognizes the word commit. When you if you have commitment, is that you're signed your national letter of intent, or if you have acceptance and you've paid your fees or whatever it is. But a verbal commitment by the NCAA standard, I know people are like, oh, it's so unethical, this and this and that. I mean, if you played college basketball or you played football, verbal commitment means zero to college coaches. Zero. Because you know why? Because those coaches are making multi-million dollars. They don't care. So, for the coach that's making $70,000, $50,000, $40,000, and it's all about ethics and about this and that, there's nothing unethical about talking to a kid that's already verbally committed because you're not breaking a rule. It's only unethical if you're breaking the rule, correct? So on the flip side of that is that if you verbally commit to that school, right, you're just saying verbally that right now, based on my situation, yes, I'll commit to you. But what happens when that coach leaves, right? The AD has to figure out, if you're committing 2 years before, if that coach is not there, that AD does not have to honor your verbal commitment, which is not recognized by the NCAA. You are not tied into the school. Most ADs will honor your verbal commitment during that senior year because they know it looks bad. But if you're 2 years out, that AD, they're probably not going to honor your verbal commitment. So if you want to, go for it. And then you have the other problem, and Reese and Don, you'll understand this. Feral cat versus the house cat. Once the house cat has their belly filled, they never want to work to get the food. The feral cat is always hungry. I always see kids I just had a situation where I watched a club team down at ECNL loaded with 24s, and it's a kid that I work with a lot with. I told her, I said, look, all of the players on your team are verbally committing right now. You watch what happens to your team because you're the oldest player on the team. You're the youngest player on the team. You have 3 players on your team that are the youngest players. You're still a year out. What has happened? Super competitive team this year. All those kids have committed. The level has done this.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're all satisfied. Everybody's satisfied. Everybody's a well-fed house cat now.
Yeah.
You don't have to fight. So, Katie, I'd say be careful and be mindful of your timing of how you do things.
Yeah, make sure it's the right fit.
I was going to say,
but who's putting the pressure on these kids, right?
Well, that's it. I was just going to say at the end, lots of pressure with all these 24s committing. The percentage, I'm sure, is pretty small, right? Like, yeah, you see a post. If I see a post a day for the next year, that's only 365 players, right? In the whole of the nation. So that's not that, that percentage isn't that much.
Let's say it's 1,000 kids. Let's say it's 1,000, right? That you see. Let's say it's 1,000. That's
so
still
a few a day. I'm seeing a few a day on social media. It's still a small percentage, right? So I think the perception is not the reality. And
We're talking
yeah,
about 12,000 girls and 10,000 guys that'll be going into a new team this year.
yeah. So I think the pressure
rough.
is almost that, and us adults have it, and we try to avoid it. But that keeping up with the Joneses, that that phrase is there for a reason. That people are trying to commit before their senior year so they can put their Instagram post up, their Twitter post up, whatever it might be. And and actually you've got to follow, I've said it before in this Q&A, you've got to follow your own path. So yeah, there's players that are committing for whatever reason, but like Andre said, if you commit going into your senior year and the coach leaves, gets fired, whatever it might be, then yeah, there's nothing binding there. And so you just have to be careful and understand that there's always going to be some sort of pressure, whether it's in the recruiting process. Now you're actually in college, there's going to be a constant flow of players that are coming in, are being recruited every year. So there's always going to be pressure on you. There's no days off. So wanting to enjoy your senior year, there's no enjoying it, because you still have to work like you're not, you're not given any game time when you go into college. So you can't enjoy you shouldn't be enjoying your senior year in terms of going up to college, because you should be working hard, knowing that, okay, now I've been given the offer, I need to now prove to them that I deserve this offer. So the pressure, I don't think you want. I think you want constant pressure, but you want it in a way that you put it on yourself. Like, okay, I'm going to this college, I don't know what the other recruits are like, or I don't know what the actual level's really like because I haven't played it. So that's the pressure I should be putting on myself. But it shouldn't be from the outside of, oh, that girl's committing there, that guy's committing over there. Worry about yourself, follow your own path, and you don't have to worry about what's going on elsewhere.
Easy as that, Reese.
Easy as that, mate.
Yeah, just don't worry about anyone else.
Wise words from a decent man.
Exactly.
What else we got, Chris? What are good questions to ask in an individual player meeting? So I think this is in regards to, was this in regards to college exit meetings, Chris?
Well, yeah, that's why I asked you to add it or not. I wasn't sure, but I didn't know if it was just relevant to know for people coming into college. I don't know.
Yeah. So what happens, folks, what's happening right now at colleges all across the country is college coaches are having individual meetings with players and staff. Sometimes they'll bring in a piece of paper that they've had players fill out, like a questionnaire, and they discuss it. Sometimes it's an informal discussion. So that's what's going on right now. So this question is, what are good questions to ask in an individual player meeting, assuming we're talking about from a player perspective. What kind of questions would you typically hear coming through meetings? And is there any kind of questions you wish players would ask you? How about that? I'll ask each of you of that. Why aren't I playing more? Isn't one of them. But what are the questions, Andre, we'll let you start, that you wish players would ask in individual player meetings at the end of the year?
Well, I think obviously the main question is playing time, right? I think playing time is always the number one question. The number two question is always about financial aid. Can increase the scholarship? Is typically that's the second one. What I wish people would come in and say is, what can I do to help them make the team better next year? What can I personally do to help our team get better next year? Very rarely, that's a very we-centered question, and it's the most, I think it's the most welcome question to ask a college coach is, what can I do to help our team get better? And I think that right off the bat kind of, allows the coach to, let their guard down a little bit, because, it's those meetings are brutal sometimes, because then that the person that you're talking to is receptive to getting some feedback. And then, And then I think, what's your expectations of me going forward? What's my long-term expectation from what you've seen? And so some kids are open to it, some kids are not. I think it's also, we talk about the word depend, but I think it's also a lot has to do with the relationship that you have with a coach and that you have with the coaching staff, how comfortable you feel with the coaching staff, where you are in terms of that, that hierarchy of, are you more comfortable with an assistant coach, are you more comfortable with the head coach? But I very rarely, I've had some meetings that didn't go very well. I know that as a coach, and both on my side and on the player side. But when you come in, is you better be ready to hear what you might not want to hear on those meetings.
Oh,
And that
absolutely. Yeah, no, I just had a discussion with a top 25 men's coach day before yesterday. And he said they just came out of player meetings, and he said, quite a few kids that he said, look, these are the things you need to work on. You need to work a lot harder in these areas. And the kids basically looked at him, go, yeah, I think I'll just transfer. When a coach tells, what about you, Reese? What's the number one question you wish that players would ask in an individual player exit meeting?
I think something along the lines of what Andre just said. What can I do to help the program is a good one, because it is a collective, and it's not just about you. And there are many different roles within a program. Especially we've had this discussion before about the roster sizes, and coaches are contractually obligated to bring in 40, 50 players, whatever it might be. And so number 27 on the roster, 32 on the roster, they're not going to have the same role as your starting number 9. So it's about understanding what your role is within the squad, within the team, within the program, and what the goals are going forward. So that's a good one to ask, and to get an idea of where you're viewed at as a player in the program. And Andre said it as well, you always get the questions, am I going to start, playing time, finances? Those questions are always going to come up when you understand it. But I like the meetings because you've got a different idea of what the players thought about the program. Sometimes it was surprising. I thought we were on this sort of page and going down this path, but it was actually different. Based on what the players say. So they're definitely sort of enlightening, and whether you want to hear it or not, they definitely do help a coach and hopefully help the players as well going forward.
Right on. All right. What else we got, Chris? Any more?
Just to add to that, is there a trend of obviously you guys being the coaches, is there a trend of guys who've gone and girls who've gone on to higher levels, how they act in these meetings? Because I've been at a professional club before. I've been in these meetings where we say, right, yeah, you're retained for a year or you're getting released. I don't think people understand, from me, a lot of people anyway, don't realize the college level is the next level. And you can't just be sitting in a meeting getting told how good you are. Like Andre said, you got to ask, how can you make the team better? How can you make yourself better? But is there a trend that you've spotted throughout the years from the personalities of people, that the questions they're asking, or is it not really like that?
Well, I think it's hard when you come from an environment where you always play. You've always been one of the better players. You're not used to having to maybe fight, a little bit more. I just had this conversation with our club players last night. I said, right here, you're comfortable because you're going to play.
Mm-hmm.
When you guys go to college, it's a whole different, you might not play for 2 years. And if you are coming into this, if you're coming into the college environment and no one has ever told you what it's really going to be like, it's a struggle, and I know, we're promoting our company, right? So I think this is where there's value to what we do, is that we spend so much time educating players in terms of what is going to happen based on our personal experiences. as college coaches, former players, and giving insight to these kids like, this is what it's like, this is what it's going to be, and you need to be mentally prepared for this and understand what you're getting yourself into. Because if you're not, you are going to struggle. This is going to be the first time that you're going to be told no, maybe. In your whole college, your whole playing experience is going to be in college when someone for the first time says, no, you're not good right now, not good enough right now. And it's a shock for a lot of kids, right? And so I think that having a clear understanding that, the level is different, but I think the biggest thing, Chris, is these kids have never been told no. They've all been significant minute players in their clubs and in high school. And it's the system. The system is different here. The system is different here than it is overseas, right? And so, the pay to play model really doesn't help that. But I just think that this is the first time a lot of kids, get told no, and rather than staying and fighting, they look to turn and leave.
Not everyone.
For that, Andre, you're saying players, aren't used to hearing no. I think, you probably have about 10% of high school players that go on to play at college. So you're basically looking at, the best player per team on average goes and plays, right, college. So now you've got a situation where, you're not used to being told no. I know when I was, playing and coaching, I never really saw players go up to that higher level and be successful. So I, in hindsight now part of this job and looking back at my play and coaching career, I'm looking at players where I didn't really see them elevate. And so I feel like they were sort of placed at the level that they should have been. And that says a lot. I think some players don't like that, whether they're in a program where they're not being successful, or maybe they were one of the better players and they want to look to a higher level. But sometimes it don't work like that. I think typically, the market, I know, Chris, you say this and I've kind of jumped on it, but the market will dictate where you go. And so, where you are isn't going to be where you end up all the time, but generally, you can bank on that being sort of the level that you're at.
Yeah. You don't see Messi playing for a conference team in England. He's where he's at because that's what he deserves to be.
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. MLS soon.
Yeah, exactly. Should we move on, Dom?
Yeah, let's do it. Do coaches prefer international players over domestic players? And again, it depends, is where we start. How good are they? How good is the domestic player? How good is the international player? Do coaches prefer international players who were playing at the local town level over U.S. national team domestic players? No, they don't. So the answer is, my answer on this is, coaches prefer players who will immediately impact their programs, who want to play for them and who don't make unreasonable demands like, I demand a full ride, full athletic, I demand it, or I'm not going to play for you. That are reasonable, good people that they want to be around. I don't think that, I hate this argument about domestic versus internationals and the domestic parents saying it's not fair that international are taking our spots on our team in our country. We're not raising our kids and helping our kids. It's silly when, oh, Chris, you're a genius. Look at you. We pulled this up. So
yeah,
I like this.
Yeah, I like this, but I wish Joe Flanagan was on the call because he did make a good point. But Don, you saw.
I'm going to let you make Joe's point for him. You pretend you're Joe, Chris, and I'll let you make the point for him. Joe won't mind. So Joe was out scouting tonight. That's why he couldn't join us. So you can go, folks, to just Google. I think my search term that I used for this was like NCAA portal data. And then it comes up and you can search by various sports. You can search and include all of 20 and 21, which is the first 2 years of the portal, and then that they kept these stats rather in the portal. And then this is just the year 2021. So on the men's side, 37% of the players playing in NCAA Division I are from another country, are internationals. And 25% of the players playing in Division II are internationals. On the women's side, 12% of the players playing in Division I are internationals. And then 7% of the women playing in Division II are internationals. So do the inverse, flip it, and you're talking 65% of the men and 88% of the women playing in Division I soccer are domestics. Still, the majority are domestics. And I don't know. What are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on this? And I want to hear you too on this, Chris. What was Joe's argument be on this, Chris?
I'm just quickly flicking through to find out, but it was, I don't remember. But like he said, he was a little surprised on the Division II. Obviously, there's only Division I, Division II here. There's no Division III, NAIA, junior college. And I think especially NAIA and junior college will be slightly different. However, we haven't got that data, so we'll use this here in front of us. But he was saying like the top 20 schools for them might be closer to 50%, especially at Division II, which I agree is probably what it would be. If you looked at a top 25 Division II school, they would probably be majority international players. And
true.
That's what happens with people. They come across these rosters, like a handful at Division I.
Oh, our friend at Charleston, right? Because he's won national titles.
Yeah.
How many Americans have been on that team? And then they point to Charleston and they go, by the way, that's all junior, that's all Division IIs in the country. And it's not true.
Yeah. And same with Marshall as well. Obviously the same sort of like they've come from the same system. The coaches there have worked together. They've kind of followed that same model. And then they go, well, Marshall's got X amount of players, and they're nearly all foreign players. And then they're like, oh my God, the foreigners taking all our spots. But that's not like a gripe at people. That's just like, understandably, if you come across that information, you kind of just like think everything's like that. But really, the stats are there. That majority are Americans.
Yeah, still are. And you're right. And 100%. When I had the number 2 junior college team in the nation, did I have any Americans starting on the team? Maybe. No, I don't think so. And that's because I did that because that's what it took to compete. Because I couldn't be number 1 in the country unless I went after players that were better than the domestic players that I could find that were willing to come to my. I loved that kid that went to Duke, by the way. I love that kid that's going to Stanford. I love that. I'll take all of them. I'll take every American I can get, and I'll win a junior college national championship with all Americans, like Mount San Antonio College is doing, by the way, down in Southern California. It won multiple national titles with all Americans, all Latinos, virtually.
But
it's not that we don't want them, it's just hard to get them to come to your school.
But that's the key right there.
What's that, Andre?
There's just not enough kids that want to go to your school. There's not enough kids that want to go to your school. So what do you do as a coach if you can't fill your roster? You're not going to spend your season with 15 kids on your roster because you don't have enough kids that want to come to your school. You think about a lot of these schools are in the middle of nowhere, right? Yep. They're schools that are state schools and small liberal arts colleges in the middle of America that no one goes to. They're not in urban centers. So what do you do as a college coach? Have training with 13 players? No, you need numbers. And so you go after them. And then here's the other thing too, is that people don't understand. It's college, not just athletics, but university settings is a business. If you are a liberal arts college, and you have 1,000 students on your campus, and you have 450, rooms on campus in terms of dorms, you need those dorms filled. Mm-hmm. It's a business. So what do those ADs tell you? I don't care where you get your kids. make sure they can afford room and board and get them in here. We'll figure it out from a tuition standpoint. You'll give them tuition. And so what are you supposed to do? So I don't buy it. The top programs in the country, yes, some of them are. I mean, I look at, my gosh, Kentucky, University of Kentucky, what they did with their program in a short time frame. I mean, they smashed my Hoosiers 3-0, smashed my Hoosiers 3-0. And, you know, IU is a predominantly American-based team in terms of the players. But there is a significant difference between having a 22-year-old man versus an 18-year-old boy or a 19-year-old boy. There's a
But
significant.
Andre, I live in Miami and my son's graduating and he wants to go to Lynn University and it's all internationals. It's not fair. Sorry, I'm ranting.
Yeah, no, I know. But it comes down to what the coach wants, right? The coach has a preference. And then here's the last part. And I'm going to say this is what I've heard from a lot of coaches. You know why we like the internationals? Because they have a certain level of professionalism to everything that they do. They show up early, they got their boots on, they're juggling, they're taking touches on the ball, they're playing little rondos on their own. They don't need anybody to tell them to do it. It's part of the culture. It's what they understand. They watch the game all the time. They're around the game all the time. They talk about the game all the time.
They play FIFA all the time.
They're just soccer junkies. They are junkies. They live it and breathe, and that's what we want. That's the culture that we want. We want people that are here to do that. And so a lot of coaches will bring in internationals to maybe internally change the culture of the team if that culture is not there. But on the women's side, I don't think it's not that big of a big difference. I mean, there's not much on the women's side.
I have nationally ranked college coaches that have recently called me and said, I've never really gotten into the international market, Don. How do I do this? How does this work? So no, it's nowhere near the same and have the same power on the women's side and pull that it does on the men's side.
I'm just looking at Syracuse. I think they were ranked number 1 or thereabouts. And they have I've done this fast, by the way, 34 people on the roster. And I think it was.
It's the Syracuse men, right?
Yeah, sorry, men. Yeah. I think it was 10 internationals.
So mostly domestics.
Yeah.
I think it comes down to, can you help a coach win? Again, I don't think people understand this as a coach's livelihood. Sometimes they're the breadwinner. They are, they don't want to move, don't want to have to move their husband or wife, don't have to move the kids out of school. They need that security. And so getting players that can help you win is the best way to secure your job. Now, if the great thing about soccer or football, whatever you want to call it, is that it's the world sport, right? Like everywhere in the world plays it. So if the country that you're in, America, isn't giving you the players that you need, then the beauty of soccer is that you can go elsewhere in the world and you can go and get players from other places.
Unlike other sports.
Yeah. And so, you don't really have it in football. You don't really have it in basketball because they're sports that derived in America and typically the best players are here in America. So you don't have to worry about that as much.
Reese, domestic parents should just be glad that we're not talking tennis. The soccer parent, because tennis is it was crazy, the number. I don't know if anybody's got that page up, but it was like 75% to internationals, 80. It was crazy numbers. And I think tennis was the highest. Water polo was high.
Yeah.
Volleyball is getting higher. The whole everything, it's getting more. Like you said, American
sports,
football.
Right?
Not that
I'd say
much.
Olympic sports are Olympic sports, and so they're played around the world. And so, now if you as a college program have access to those athletes, then you're going to use it. And again, do those players, regardless of where they're from, regardless of their nationality, can they come in and help you win? That's the ultimate goal. And then Andre had said it earlier, where the ADs are saying, we need this much, right? Their higher ups, people above them are saying, we need this many people in the school. This is our number. This is the size of the freshman class. So soccer, women's soccer, golf, whatever it might be, you need to reach this number for us to, break even or whatever it might be. And so that being the case, the coaches have to get the players in. And again, they don't just have to pull from one country, they can pull from the world. And so that's where I don't think there's a there's an answer to say the coaches prefer internationals or Americans. I just think who gives you the most chance to win.
And also compare it to, for example, compare it to the English Premier League. If the English Premier League was all English players, yes, the national team might be slightly better. I mean, debatable, but the product itself of the English Premier League would not be enjoyable. So like the
100%.
college system, like, yeah, I'm not saying it's compared to the English Premier League, but it's definitely increased the levels because
The
you've
same
got all these
concept.
guys.
Yeah, I think that's a great analogy. You know, it's because, you know, those English players have to play against a better caliber of player.
Yeah.
So hopefully, you know, it pushes them up. And again, there's no, you know, there's no discrimination in terms of where you're from. It's, can you help me win? And so that's what it comes down to. Premier League, college soccer, whatever level.
Everyone's in the world like, oh, we need to embrace everyone. Everyone's human, but it comes to soccer, like, that guy's from not from this country. What's going on? He's taking my kid's roster spot. Anyway, keep moving.
And by the way, so Chris, that site is, if you guys just Google NCAA student international student participation, it comes right up. Then you can search by division, by sport, so you guys can see the data for yourself.
Cool. There it is.
Sorry, Reese,
All right.
not you again.
I'll
Oh,
tell
my
you what,
buddy Nick.
I started off strong.
I nearly put me in.
You got to say something interesting first, Chris.
I know.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's it.
All right, Nick Bunocour. So Nick, by the way, so he Reform Sports Project is his project, and Nick is fantastic. We'll make sure we tag him in this. But he says, this is his tweet of the week: if a college coach sends you a text, email, or calls and says he's from a D2, D3, NAI, or JUCO, do not big league him. Coaches at every level know one another and communicate. If you big league a D3 coach and he tells his D1 buddy, it's a bad look. So be humble, respectful. It only helps. You ever been big leagued, Reese? Do you know what we mean by that? That might be an American term. Big league.
Yeah, they kind of
Big
look.
time.
They look down on that level. They're like, yeah, I want D1. I'm too big time for D2, D3, all that.
Exactly. So we all talk. It's funny because we've got a guy, Colton Bryant, who a couple years back was coaching junior college, was starting up a program from scratch. This year he was on staff and huge part of their recruiting bit for Lamar University women's soccer, who cracked into the national rankings and absolutely destroyed it and made it into the NCAAs. And now it's a school that a lot of girls are going, yeah, I'd like to go there. And they were big leaguing that coach a couple of years ago, kind of slacking, not that interested. You coach at a junior college. And look where the coach is now. My own son's coached at a school called Beloit that most people have never heard of just last year, now in the ACC. Coaches move around, don't they? And they have friends, don't they?
Yeah, I don't think you want to. I'd actually commented on this. You don't want a big league because, yeah, coaches move around. They do have friends at different levels. You know, I'm not sure what he says. That, you know, if a D3 coach has it depends. If a D3 coach says to a D1, I big leagued us, I think that D1 coach is going to look and say, can that player help me win? Again, that's what I think it comes down to. I kind of make it simple, but you know, I'm not sure they're not going to recruit them because of that. But I think the message is, you know, especially the initial part of the tweet of don't big league, you know, these other divisions, because you may not be of D1 caliber, right? You may say in your junior year, yeah, I want to go D1. It comes to your senior year and it comes to Christmas and now you're hitting January and you're ready to go to school and you're ready to go to a D1 program and no one's come in for you. Now you're probably going to have to look at the D2, the D3, the JUCOs, the NAIAs, because that might be your level. So, you know, and you might have there might be a coach there that recruits you and then they end up going D1. My friend actually got the job at Northern Illinois. He was at Saginaw Valley State University in Michigan, D2 school. He recruited a girl there. and then he's gone to Northern Illinois. They've had a good year, and he brought one or two players over with him. And so, you know, they didn't make D1 initially, but now they're playing D1, those players. And that's because they looked at Saginaw Valley State, they looked at the coach and the program and liked what had happened there, and didn't big league Division 2, right? And at that their time during the recruiting process. And now they're playing D1.
Didn't you just place a kid at Northern Illinois?
He sure did.
Yep.
What
Michaela Rivera, she came to us probably a month and a half ago, maybe. No, probably about a month ago.
You're kidding me. So what
Yeah.
happened there? Just tell that story real quickly, because I hadn't heard the whole story about how this went down.
Yeah, so she's a 2023, a little bit overlooked. You know, she's a 23 and hadn't had many looks from the D1, D2, just recruiting in general. She had some interest, but nothing cement, nothing solid. And so, she reached out to us, needed help on the recruiting side. And, she's an engineering major, so that immediately cut a whole load of schools out because they don't have engineering. And then some schools that do have engineering didn't have her engineering major, right? So, that was a situation that cut a lot of schools out. And yeah, I just, again, I liked her ability and I liked the environment that she was in. Great student, so that wasn't going to be a hurdle. And, again, my good friend, Coach Michael O'Neill at Northern Illinois University is building something there. He's had a good first year, and he'll have many more good years there. But this was just a situation where that school had engineering. I was able to get her schedule, and Michael was able to go out there and watch her a couple times. And most recently, the weekend just gone, and was able to see her on the field, and obviously knew that academically she had the ability to be able to get into the school and be a successful student, And so, yeah, she committed with them, and I think she's going to have a good career there. So it was, she was willing to go to any division. Obviously had goals of going Division 1, partly because of her team that she's in. They have a lot of Division 1 players going. So, she went there, well, she committed there, and like I said, she'll have a good career.
Fantastic. Great story. All right.
I'll just add to that as well quickly, just to finalize that. People, big league, and it's the same as like ignoring emails and texts and stuff from coaches from different levels. I mean, we could talk about that a lot, but if anyone listens to this, like, respond back to coaches, whatever the level. You never know who they are, who they know, and when you'll need them. And also, like I say to all my players, just respond and set up a call with every coach, even if it's a level or school you don't think you're gonna like. You never know. Just try it out.
And just to wrap that one up, Chris, because people are going to hear your quote that you just said, and they're going to go, yeah, but coaches should do the same thing. They should always get back to kids. Look, remember, kids, players, you're the ones that want the job. The coaches, they're the employers. Okay. You can't make rules for your employers and tell them how they're going to hire, how they're going to operate, how they're going to run their businesses. You'll never get hired. That's not how it works. So I understand that you want all of the coaches to get back to you, but there's 500,000 of you, and there's 1,300 of them on the men's side and 1,600 on the women's side.
You're getting a couple of emails. They're getting a couple of thousand emails. Like, it's really hard. You got to understand that.
Well, I spoke to a last MLS Next. Spoke to a top D1 program in California, and the coach had said that they got 1,000 emails on the lead up to MLS Next. 1,000 emails. One event. Like, they cannot get back to you. There's 4 coaches on staff. What are they going to do? Go through all 250?
This is why I text coaches and I don't email them very often, because I'm guaranteeing my email, if it comes in at the wrong time, it's buried at the bottom of 1,000.
One of my best buddies, he actually quit college coaching at a Big Ten school last couple of years because of just he became a professional emailer, so he could not keep up with it. It was just too many coming in, and just like he didn't feel like. Anyway, that's his like story. But
Don, you said that you text. We SRUSA, we have those networks, right? I always say to people who ask me about SRUSA, I was like, whenever a consultant jumps on board, a new consultant and someone that's been around the game, we're bringing a network with us. So we're not just emailing these coaches and getting an email off the website. We're actually texting and having calls with these coaches, and we have relationships with coaches. We're going to events, ECNL. Obviously, Andre and Blake were down at ECNL last weekend. We'll be at MLS Next in a couple of weeks. We'll be at the United Soccer Coaches Convention in a month and a half. So we actually know these coaches, and that's what gives us gives us our players the luxury of being able to be seen, is that we have these connections. So we can bypass those 1,000 emails and say, hey, can you look at my player? That's just the reality of it.
To add further to that as well, like yesterday, a real life example I put into our little, obviously, Slack channel and stuff like that. Does anyone know ex-school coaches there? One of our staff, Joe Flanagan, played actually with that member of staff I was mentioning. There, I said, mind connecting? Yeah, done. Do you know what I mean? So rather than me like reaching out, which is fine, and they'll get back to you sometimes, but if there's a real connection there, if somebody they trust, then they presented. Joe presented some players on my behalf, basically, which works a lot better.
Yep.
Cool.
I love our company. I love our guys. All right.
Right. To say we had nothing, guys. We're 1 hour.
I think
20.
we beat this up, dude. This was because we did this part at the beginning, didn't we?
Yeah.
We kind of talked about the topic of the week.
Yeah.
So I'm good. Chris, we're going to let you go to bed, man.
Yeah.
That's what's next. Chris has to go to bed.
Well, anything else? I will say, if anyone, exactly. If anyone's listening, which we do, I appreciate everyone who does listen to this, because quite a lot of people listen on the drive, and I get a lot of messages, and I look at the stats. But if you can leave you can leave as a 5-star and stuff on Apple Podcast, you can leave like some sort of rating thing, review thing on Spotify. Anything like that helps us get up the rankings. So we're still growing in numbers, but we're glad it's helping people.
Smash
and that's
the like
all the
button.
payment we ask for in
Smash
this, right?
Like. You're an influencer, aren't you?
I feel like it. Smash the like button, subscribe.
Press the bell.
Yeah. We got to get better at that. Asking for business. All right, guys. Thanks. We'll hey guys, we're going to monitor for this next week. We're going to monitor what's going on, but I think we're off next Thursday. It's Thanksgiving here. So we're going to take a whole week off. We'll collect 2 weeks worth of questions. We'll come back in 2 weeks. So everybody in the United States, happy Thanksgiving. For those of you in England who have no idea what we're talking about, Chris will tell you what it's equivalent to, I guess. But
just a Thursday.
Thanks, guys.
It's Christmas without the presents.
It's,
Okay.
Yeah, we'll just be a regular day. Won't even realize it's happening.
Yeah.
Fantastic. All right, guys. Hey, enjoy the World Cup, everybody. Take care.
Yeah. Starts in 3 days.
Yep.